It is amazing what a lot of bit of snow can do to us, isn't it? Come on, man. Welcome into My State of Mind. I am Dan Yorke, and I'm going to hustle through our segment A, as we call it, the first segment that you see, because we've got an interview with Ray Rickman, who was here yesterday, but he and I had short time on a couple of things like race relations and the governor's race and his favorite candidate, Clay Pell. And funny, when we ended the broadcast last night, we stuck around and had a continuing conversation on those two matters. So we'll actually have new material, same person, but I think you'll enjoy that. And it came in handy because our scheduled guest rearranged based on the weather, and he will be here tomorrow. Joe Rodeo, who is the lawyer for the Cranston Police in that Cranston parking ticket blitz flap. So, and speaking of the weather, just go slow out there. As we speak, it's probably coming down heavy. It's light snow. It's manageable. I think what's really the most difficult part of the whole weather thing is the cold. It's very cold out there and will be biting cold again over the course of the next 3 or 4 days. But you know what? You'll be looking for it, you know, come the 94 degrees in July. Let's go to the rundown and see what we have here. This is not good. There's a lot of concerns right now about security during the Winter Olympics. This is not good. Way too much money borrowed, and I got an idea on how we can lessen that. Oh, thank goodness. We've all been on pins and needles waiting for this announcement. I'd like to know how you back up the data. And Bill Belichick, you know, playing a little bit passive-aggressive, it looks like, with this accusation about the midfield collision on Sunday afternoon. Let's get right down to it. In Sochi, they are, well, Vladimir Putin is, you know, exercising all sorts of his version of bravado. He's a strange dude, man. You know, the president of this former Soviet Union, the biggest country in it, Russia, where the Olympics are going to kick off on February 6th. Here's a headline. The Black Widows, a longtime aspect of terrorism in Russia, is part of Sochi Olympic fears. Yeah, I mean, they've had a couple of incidents recently. A train station blew up, a lot of people hurt, and that's where the torch actually began, there at the train station, meaning the torch to Sochi, which is kind of like a beach resort for the Olympics. I don't know. They're 300,000 short on ticket sales right now. There are a lot of people concerned that the terrorist cells that exist in Russia have actually permeated the safe zone. There are 3 women they're looking for, known as Black Widows. One of them is 22 years of age. And all of this, as athletes from all around the world are coming in for, what was the International Olympic Committee thinking? You know, the Center for Strategic and International Studies had a big thing on this yesterday, I believe. Here's what one guy was saying about it.
The Russians can be ruthless and effective when they want to be. There are huge limitations, and I think they're going to be challenged here.
Yeah, huge limitations to keeping everybody secure. So as we get closer, we'll know more, but there's some of the people that they're worried about and chasing. We've got warships now moving into within range. We've got a contingency plan to go in and get our athletes, you know, from our air stations in Germany. Say a prayer over this one, but I think we need a little bit more diligence and less politics when it comes to deciding where Olympic Games ought to be. Hopefully we get through this. More to come as we get closer. All right, second item here today, coming back home. Lane Chafee wants to borrow $275 million. I got 2 ideas on how we can afford this. There's the headline. He's got some initiatives, and what does he want to do? He wants $75 million for environmental stuff. He wants $40 million for added transportation stuff. And he wants $125 million for an engineering center at URI, and I'm all for that. But here's my first idea. Have you ever taken a look at how the actual bidding contracts go and the waste that happens in these building projects? I've heard too many war stories about the way they go about this business and the waste that happens while they're building projects like public buildings at URI. And that's got nothing to do with the administration there or even the legislature. It's got to do with the way they do business. And I'm telling you, an audit of the way these contracts actually work could take bids down significantly to build these important buildings that we need. I'm sure we need an engineering building, but we need bigger and better audits when we do it. Secondly, Link Chafee's just going to take the money out of you know, some of the state employees. You know why? Because if they don't pay their taxes, watch the, you know, can I say this? The grin on his face on Newsmakers this past weekend about getting after the state employees.
The state of Rhode Island, we have many great directors, but one of our real stars is Dave Sullivan, who's here and oversees our taxation. He's our tax collector, and he just finds these different areas where we can go after different people and close loopholes, and this is one he came up with. He's terrific.
Are a lot of state workers not paying their taxes? I mean, give us a scope of the problem here. Why would you put it in your budget?
Yeah, I don't know how we can't get after them, but now we're just strengthening that ability to pursue our own people, and so that's what we want to do. Dave Sullivan's terrific, and we're going to go after every dollar we possibly can that's owed to us.
You see the grin on his face, going after our own people, but he couldn't tell Tim or Ted or both how much money that whole program was worth. He's a funny guy. He wants to borrow a lot of money. I don't think he's going to get it from the legislature. Next item, quickly. Let us go. We'll know in a week. Oh, thank God. Put the headline up, Laura. Oh, is he in or is he out? I don't know if he's in or he's out. Jess was hoping he announces his birthday or something. And, joke's on you. Not running. Clay Pell, here's some, there he is. A little spooky sometimes, the way he kind of stares you down, isn't he? That's all we've got on him. We don't even have good audio on him because he's been so hard to find during this entire news media romance with him. But at least by next week we'll know, and then the romance will have to be over, and we'll actually get some answers, and this rope-a-dope that he's been playing will be over. Clay Pell. Next item. Real quick, we go to the headline here in the Providence Journal today. Fung campaign accused of lying in poll. The Block campaign, these are the two guys running for governor. Here are their pictures. Ken Block on the left, Alan Fung on the right. Alan Fung, the mayor of Cranston. Ken Block, the moderate party guy, now Republican. Block says that the guy on the right has did a push poll where he's lying about Ken Block's positions. You know, you call somebody and say, hey, did you know that this guy is a terrorist? And you go, oh my God, geez, oh, I don't like him very much. You know, that kind of a push poll. Nobody called anybody terrorist, but I'm just making it up as we go along. The thing that bothers me most about this is that in this Randall Edgar story in the Journal today, the Fung people, while denying that they've been push polling negatively, claim that amongst core supporters in the Republican Party, they got a 30-point lead. But there's no attribution at all. We need some better journalism right now from the Journal and others. You know what? If one party says I got a 30-point lead, you've got to actually verify the data. That's like me saying I shot 65 in the golf course this weekend and not showing my card or the signature from my partner who attests to it. All right, you know what? I'm out of time for the sports discussion. We'll do that with Bill Belichick tomorrow because we got all sorts of things that are packaged into the show. So we shall come back and we'll talk with Ray Rickman about some important conversations. Stay with us. So I extended a conversation with Ray Rickman, my guest last night, community activist, former state representative, owner of the Rickman Group, swimempowerment.org. We were talking about racism, and he had some interesting extra thoughts, and here's how that conversation went. You know, we were talking about, in a previous program, we were talking about the subtleties, or not so subtleties, of, is racism the proper word?
Yes.
You see, there's a lot of bigotry that exists in all of us, but I don't know, I think we've overused the racism thing. That's systemic. Now, you'll say, oh, duh, look at the city government, and you'll see the system going the wrong way.
No, so you're a sophisticated man. Anybody can be a racist. One of the times that I was hit in the face by somebody, it was a black doorman trying to keep me out of a white club. So, you know, anybody can do racist acts or be a racist. Now, he probably wasn't a racist. He was trying to keep his job.
You know, I guess it's a semantics conversation. You know, I think anybody can be a bigot. I think we got bigotry within us. But
Yes.
I think when we charge somebody to be a racist, we've charged them to be a systemic thinker. And I'm not so sure that we haven't been overly aggressive that way.
So I actually happen to be an expert on this because I teach diversity workshops for community colleges and universities.
All right, so I'm in class.
And we have to be very careful because right in 5 minutes into the class, someone says, well, some black teenager did something, blah, blah, blah. And I said, You know, you have to be careful because it's the level of power you have. And so the black teenager said something awful to you that's awful. That's quite different from the HR director tearing up your resume, throwing it in the garbage, and you can't get a job. They're both racist acts. So all kinds of people are racist. In America, we don't like to acknowledge that anymore. We can't remember Stennis or Eastman or any of those people who control the U.S. Senate and caused people harm. But there are still a lot of racists. Do you know I'm the same person I was when I was 25? Aren't any of those racists still around? All those people who were in my face when I was 20 and 25 years old.
I'm not sure what the question means.
There are a lot of racists in America. Now, what they do or what they don't do, and when they act and when they don't act, is the issue here.
Okay. We were discussing some of the attribution to the term subtlety that was in the paper on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And you're saying there's nothing subtle about it. And then you went on about school performance and the government and the like. Elaborate a little bit. Talk to me about what you think is going on in that dynamic.
So we know when certain people are involved, certain standards are kept or met. When other people are involved, the standards are lessened or neglected. And you cannot spend $350 million on a school system and do as poorly as is being done in the city of Providence unless somebody doesn't care. It isn't money. People are always talking about money. It's not money. My guess is a lot of it's attitude.
Whose?
Remember, I'm still a liberal.
Yes, you are.
I'd like to blame everybody because I'd like to blame everybody.
Well, you know what? I got to tell you something. As a former elected official and someone
Yes.
who's still very involved in the political scene,
Yes.
I got to tell you that the politics of King of the Hill minority politicians drives me crazy because in many ways it's let me keep people upset enough so that they think that I'm the one that's going to make them less upset, but I got to keep them upset enough to make sure that I keep on the top of the hill to make sure that they're less upset. And I don't see a lot of, even today, a lot of minority politicians that are willing to say and do the right things and be as tough on the school system per se, and to have some internal conversation within the community as
No,
well.
that's because they're
so
fright-
this is not, I don't know who you're talking about.
So people are frightened of the teachers union. They're frightened of teachers.
True.
They're frightened of administrators. They're frightened of a mayor. And then we haven't got to the parents yet. So when I say I'm blaming almost everybody, and I'm blaming my neighbors who take all their kids out of, on the top of College Hill, they take all their kids out of public school. They don't care. And they put them in private school, and they go broke paying for it.
Guilty.
And you can't much
I
blame
couldn't
them.
save the world. I had to do it.
No, you have to save your child first.
Right.
That makes you a good father. But guess what? You're supposed to look back. You're supposed to look back. And I've been to meetings where they say, okay, when does Moses Brown close? When does Wheeler close? No one ever mentions the public schools. They don't care. They're neglectful. So I think almost everyone is to blame. And we can fix all of this. That's why I'm so angry with a couple of mayors, because this is manageable. We can fix it. Do you know we could racially integrate Hope High School in 1 year? It sits in the middle of the third
It's a
most
beautiful neighborhood.
prosperous community in Rhode Island.
Right.
With every neighbor of mine has their kid in Wheeler, and they're trying to figure out where they're going to get the money from college since they're spending it right now.
Right.
And they would integrate that school in 5 minutes if there was 2 minutes worth of leadership from downtown. 2 minutes worth. And there isn't any. Because almost everybody is throwing up their hands. The next mayor of Providence needs to, you want to tell you what I like? I love the mayor of Boston, former, just left. And I always thought of him as a janitor who happened to have a chauffeur and a bodyguard. That's what the city of Providence needs. Someone to pay attention to our problems. That's what we need. And I could start picking on what a couple mayors have done. But you should not run for office in the middle of your term. You should not do it. You shouldn't be in Dubai in the middle of your term. Not when we have these potholes and these schools. It's wrong. I didn't come here to be controversial, but do you know what I think? I think one day I'm going to be at the gate, and St. Peter is going to say to me, were you part of the sin against the children of Rhode Island? And I want to say on every occasion, whether it was a swimming pool or whether it was the dropout rate, that I spoke up. And I talk to politicians all the time behind closed doors. I just don't want to take the blame for what we are doing.
That was our conversation extended on some of the MLK themes with Ray Rickman. When we come back, he and I kind of duke it out on some political issues, including his favorite candidates. Stay with us. Piggybacking off last night with my guest Ray Rickman, we were short on time on some of the politics, and one of his favorite candidates, I think he's a candidate, Clay Pell and the like for governor. More of that conversation from post-game last night. New for you. Okay, so you think I got it wrong on Clay Pell so far? Tell me why I shouldn't be aggravated at a news media that is promoted pedigree and pop culture and celebrity and has not asked a single doggone question of any value as to the process by which he has become, allegedly by media fascination and some operatives, an odds-on favorite to win the governor's race.
No, he's not.
Arlene Violet, in her
Yes.
last article,
Yes.
wrote that it is his race to lose, and I respect Arlene. I read it and I almost went, what?
Well, from her writing to, God's ears, this is going to be a tough race. I couldn't predict, and I don't think Arlene can either. Arlene may be trying to get a race. We don't know what's going to happen. 3/4 of the people of Rhode Island haven't focused on this race. They haven't thought about Clay Pell.
Right.
But
We
can
all know
I
that.
come back to this? He's a very intelligent, honest, hard-working, dedicated person with a fabulous, military work history. And I'm thrilled that anybody who's going to try to be governor of Rhode Island, who actually understands people, cares about people, speaks multiple languages. He's a gentleman and a scholar, and he has every right to run.
Of course he has
Every
every
right.
right to run.
And loving your wife, when did that become a sin?
Oh, stop it.
No, that's what you suggested. They were being
No.
clownish or something in public.
No. The tweeting thing is like you wouldn't tweet at each other happy anniversary unless you were trying to establish a public profile. And when you're even now with this public profile that you have so magically established. Come on, everybody knows what's going on.
So let me
here.
say this. I'm not going to convince you, but I had this conversation just an hour ago. When I was a state rep, I used to send out 4 newsletters a year. I said, I wish I were a state rep now. I'd be tweeting every morning because of the ease of the communication, that
Understood.
create community. That's what Clay Pell's trying to do.
Well, it has with happy anniversary. I don't know.
He's trying to tell you who you want to know who he is. He's trying to tell you.
Oh, you know what? Since you're a buddy of his, why don't you bring
Wait,
him on
I'm not
in here?
a buddy.
You're a fan.
I'm a
You
fan.
just said from her Arlene's lips to God's ears that he become the governor.
No. This
Do I have to roll the tape back?
Yes.
You just
because
said
what
that.
I really meant is this: if she thinks this is a real race, she's premature. We don't know what's going to happen in this race.
Look, I just think that it's not like there's X number of traditional hoops that you got to go through, but there's a little bit of respect for the electorate that the news media needs to have before they start pumping somebody up. I think I'm more aggravated at the news media than I am with Clay Pell. And absolutely, he has every right in the world to run. I would never suggest that somebody doesn't. But his first interview,
Yes.
13 times in 21 minutes, he
Could
talked
I
about
ask
moving
you-
forward without anything
Could I
substantially
ask you
said.
a technical question since you understand these things?
Sure.
So he may not, and again, I haven't discussed this with him, he may not want to give away everything that he's going to tell us when he gives his speech in a week or a day. I assume you know already when he's going to announce.
I have no idea. At the end of the month, he's going to make a decision, whatever.
And he, at that point, has to try to be impactful, get your attention and your respect. He probably thought it was early to be giving away everything in the barn. But I think what he said, and he and I have had this conversation, he wants to move Rhode Island forward. And repetition is the key of life. If you say it 10 times, maybe someone will hear it. But you said he said it 13 times. I'm going to tell him only say it 7 next time.
Yeah, maybe, because you know what? Once you get to the repetition and people hear it, you get it to the point where you say it so many times it loses its meaning. And by the way, benchmarks are what I'm interested in as a constituent and broadcaster.
Yes.
Benchmarks.
Yes.
Vague references to moving forward.
So
white noise to
you
me,
and I
man.
are on the exact same team. I am tired of politicians who buy ads and make promises and don't deliver or don't even try to deliver. You will not get that from Clay Pell. You're going to be surprised. He has character.
We'll see. Okay, so that was our conversation with Ray yesterday. By the way, as I mentioned in the rundown, Clay Pell will announce something next Wednesday. Your State of Mind next. Welcome back. Your State of Mind. You get in touch with the show this way. You simply call us, leave us a voicemail, 228-1886. We'll play it on the air. stateofmind@myiTV.com is the email. Of course, you can tweet at us and Facebook post at Dan Yorke Show, YORKE. Here's an interesting Facebook post off a voicemail that we ran yesterday where Phil was asserting that Ken Block was my boy. He says, I agree with Phil. Nobody's my boy, you say. I've watched and rewatched your interviews with both candidates. I feel you do rank Ken Block above Alan Fung. You have to understand something, ladies and gentlemen. I score it as I see it as the game goes on. Alan Fung has had a terrible last few weeks. Ken Block doesn't have the disadvantage. He's on the left, Alan's on the right. Doesn't have the disadvantage of having to run a city when you're, in the middle of a race. Sometimes it's an advantage depending on how well you're managing. But, there's ebbs and flows and cycles. I'm not in anybody's corner. That's my point. Never have been. Won't be. And that's a promise from me to you. We'll see you tomorrow night as we examine the Cranston Ticket Blitz at 7:30. We'll see you then.